LT, and I'm an alcoholic addict.
Welcome to Recovering Addict. I am not LT. My name is Jake. I'm a recovering substance user. My resume, which qualifies me to be here, involves trauma, domestic violence, growing up in an addicted home, long-term incarceration, and on the brighter side of things, lots of counseling and, life coach. This channel being here with you guys. And tonight we have a guest. I'm sure you're all familiar with Jeanette, who recently, last week, got 2 years of sobriety, and we have her here to share her story. So let's pull her on from the backstage. Hello, Jeanette.
Hello.
So we have, oh damn, I lost it.
I thought I was nervous, so.
Oh goodness. Well, so what's your sobriety date?
May 14th was 2 years. Super exciting. It was really great. The little video that everybody put together, that was a definite surprise. I think that was probably the best sobriety gift I could have ever gotten.
Yeah.
So super appreciative of it. Love this group. Love everybody.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Thank you.
So I titled this episode "Seeking Moments," and so you're here to share your story, and let's start. How was your childhood, like when you were growing up, like younger childhood?
There's a lot of things I don't remember. And I don't know if it's normal for a lot of people, but just certain points, remembering like a toy boat in a bathtub, but nothing in my early childhood do I really remember. My mother, who I think is watching right now, she was a very young mother. She had me at 15. And so I think she was growing up as well as, raising me. Like we kind of, in a way, grew up together. And there's some things, when I was younger that happened, but I'm kind of not really ready to talk about that yet. Maybe later. And I think there's some things that might bring up some brash feelings between people. So I don't want to do that on this right now. But other than that, a pretty normal childhood. Going into school, I was pretty popular. Most everybody in my school knew me. I was on the list, the ballot for homecoming queen. Made top 10, and band geek. I would say goody two-shoes. I never went and partied or anything like that. I was never one of those party kids in high school. I think I did all my wilding out in my 30s. So and it might be why I did that, because I didn't take that opportunity as a young adult to do so. I've thought about that quite often. But Yeah, I mean, and then right after graduating, 2 weeks after graduation, I went right into boot camp, and then, spent 5 years there. And then, of course, that's where I met my ex-husband and where my awesome son came from. And and then got out. And I think some of that too, some of why I became an addict was I was so used to structure, and I flourish with structure. And I knew that about myself once I got clean. And that was and is a big part of keeping myself clean, is by trying to maintain routines. And I think that's a lot of us addicts, is keeping routines.
Hmm.
Um, because yeah, I did awesome in the Navy. I actually thought about becoming a career, and I kick myself in the butt sometimes, not doing that. But, you know, I always say God, you know, had me walk the broken path that brought me to this, now. And so everything happened for a reason. I was supposed to go through the things I did. Um, I may not know exactly why just yet, but I know there is a reason. And I can say that one thing is I appreciate so many little things that I never would have if I didn't go through what I've gone through and what everybody on this site has gone through. It's really taught me to be super grateful for really everything. Although there's moments, everybody has their moments.
And that's what we're seeking,
Right.
is moments. So, what was the, you said you didn't experiment in high school. So, what was your introduction to drugs?
Um, so like I said, I married my ex-husband. We met in the Navy, and then we moved back to the area I'm in now, actually. And I became friends with his friends, and his friends, because I knew nobody else in this area. I was just me and him, and my son at the time. And his friends were party friends from high school, and so that's what they were still into, I guess. In a way, they still didn't grow up. um for a long time I battled with him, like, you need to stop, I need you, like, I need you, and you need to maintain a job, blah 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 blah. And it kind of got to the point where it was like, if you can't beat him, join him, because he
Hmm.
was having fun all the time and I was the serious one. And I was, you know I had to take all the responsibilities. And then, him as my husband at the time, he's like, just try it. And I'm like, well, he's my husband. He wouldn't do anything to like hurt me, because of course I was scared hoopless, we'll say. um
Oh,
uh
shitless, you mean?
yeah, the first time I tried the drugs with him. And
What was the drug?
well, at that time it was cocaine. He had me try coke. That was the first drug that I ever tried, other than, like, there was occasionally, like, I tried to smoke a joint and I didn't like it because I'm like, ew, yuck, so that wasn't. But like hardcore, it was cocaine. And then all of a sudden I'm like, whoo, I got all this energy, like I can be super mom.
Hmm.
um and then it and here's the thing, he may have introduced it to me, but I'm going to tell you right now, I was a big girl and I could have said no.
Hmm.
So ultimately it was not his fault, it was mine. I didn't realize how fast and hard drugs can take a hold of you. um what what really kind of happened is, that one time turned into, a month later. Well, let's do it again. It's a weekend. We just got paid. Let's party. All right, cool.
So
Weekends
there,
started to become every other weekend. And then it became every weekend, and then it came every other day, and to the point where, well, then by that time I was physically addicted to it. So then, as well as him, so then we were seeking pretty much every day.
Yeah. So, in retrospect, like, I don't know, what, in retrospect, what were you coping with? What type of emotions were you coping with? Like, that led to the escalation in the drug use?
I guess not being a part of the crowd, the group, I guess. Um, Having all the responsibility and worrying about it, and I didn't want to be the only one, I guess.
I love you too, baby.
So I'm just gonna
So,
say that it wasn't. It was just being left out, I guess, and being like
so
in an area. So again,
sort
I'm
of a,
sorry.
sort of a disconnection.
Yeah, and I guess I thought it would like connect us more in a
Like,
way.
seeking acceptance.
Right. And I was kind of dumb to how hardcore, it could take you. Um I didn't realize, like, uneducated about it, I guess.
Love you too, baby.
Um
Cherie says hi.
and so I didn't think it was a big deal for a long time.
Yeah. So, okay, baby. So you started with cocaine, and that escalated to daily use. What, like, did it escalate even further from there?
Well, really, that was the one time, was the cocaine. That didn't happen like all the time. What it was is, well, I tried this, so okay, I'll try the other things that you're doing. And that was um, Vicodin
Hmm.
and Percocets, and the Percocets perked me up. So, super mom, I could do all these things really fast and really good, and I felt great. And then it got to a point where I didn't feel so great unless I had them. And then it took a lot to feel great. And then finally to a point where, well, now I just feel normal. Now I can just function. You know what I mean? Um, so yeah, it went from really from pills, and then, me and him split up and got a divorce and all. And then, you know, I'm what you call a trash can junkie. I
Well,
liked it all.
real quick, like, what led to the divorce there? If
Really, honestly, I really think the drugs, you know, uh, because ultimately, when you're I guess, a codependent, you're both using, one person would not want to and want to stop, and the other one wouldn't. So then and it's right there all the time, whether it's this person having it or wanting it, that person. And it just got to the point where, all of us know when you're using, obviously, we pretty much all become bipolar, mood swings, angry, uh, you know, not having energy, lazy, whatever, all those things kind of came into play. So I would say ultimately, the drug use is what drove us to split up.
was there, uh like, violence, or, like, did it escalate to those types of situations, or was it just like
There
sort of
was, um, there was at times, yes. And towards the end, it got pretty scary, to the point where, I had to take certain actions, and then pretty much just left everything and went home. And but I was, obviously, at that time, I was so far into my addiction that once I was home, I still, you know we can go anywhere and find drugs. as addicts. We can go all around the world and find drugs somehow. So I went straight to it, just in a different area. Um, and then from there, it just escalated, to ultimately where, I started using heroin. I wasn't an intravenous user. I was close a few times. Um,
So we
def-
went, so we went cocaine, and then
mhm.
there was opiates in the form of pills. Like, how did you get introduced to heroin?
um, because Percocets on the street, you know, trigger warnings, everybody, but Perk 30s on the street, you could pay upwards of, 40 to $60, you know what I mean, for one pill. And obviously, when you're to a point where you need 10 of those to feel normal, that's a lot of money. So ultimately, a baggie of heroin was $20 and it lasts a whole lot longer. So that's what escalated was, well, this will last longer and it's much cheaper. So,
So
and then
economics.
right. And then finally, the heroin just it slowly just turned into fentanyl where that's all you could get. So ultimately that's what I ended with was fentanyl, and that's all you could really get, you know, everywhere.
You mentioned being a trash can junkie. Like before I interrupted you, do you care to open that idea, that phrase for us just a little bit?
Um, just when people say like their drug of choice or DOC, for a lot of people it's one thing, one particular thing. For me, I liked it all. If I could get my hands on it, that's what I wanted. I mean, I can say ultimately at the end, I had two DOCs that I kind of piggybacked, um, to the point where I wouldn't use one without the other, and that was fentanyl and crack. And honestly, or meth, depending on what I could get, an upper and a downer, basically. And I'm pretty sure that's why I'm still here, as weird as that sounds, because one, lowers your heart rate so low. Obviously, fentanyl killed so many people, and crack and cocaine and meth, bring you back up and speed your heart rate up. So I'm pretty sure that I would have been dead if it wasn't for using both of those in tandem. Um, so yeah, trash can junkie is more than one DOC, and
Okay.
that was definitely me.
And during all of this, like, were you, when I was at the height of my addiction, I was living on the street. Um, just essentially, hell, I would have been happy with couch surfing. It was a little bit lower than that. But like, what did your life look like at that period of time?
Um, so like towards the end, I had a home, like we had a home, even though there was a lot of times that, because I used all the money and had some great excuses why we didn't have money to pay, the light bill or the heat or lights and stuff. Many times on the verge of being kicked out or had been kicked out, quickly found somewhere else or whatever. Um, but yeah, at the time I had a place I could run to, like I could be home per se. Um, but I chose to run the streets. Um, and the guilt started to get so bad with me that I would literally not come home for, at first it was days at a time, and then it became a week, or, I think 2.5 weeks was, one of the longer periods that I wasn't home. I didn't answer the phone and I didn't call, like no one. My mom, my mom actually had posted on Facebook at one point that was missing and trying to find me. And, I knew where I was, just nobody else did. Um, but I chose to run the streets. And obviously, since I wasn't going home to get money from, my partner, I was making money, you know, my way. And, the best way at first was cleaning houses, or, I would actually run drugs, to make what I could, what they would give me, or what I could, steal from whoever I was, sending this, or, getting sent to. Um, I've done that lots of times. And then ultimately, you might as well say that I was prostituting. Um, I kind of said that I wasn't for a long time because I wouldn't go all the way. I wouldn't do it all. Um, but I was doing some of it, and I was still making money off of it. So, that's ultimately what it was. And then at the very end, we were homeless, and I put us there. And we have some really well, Alan, he has some really great friends that allowed us to come into their home, once I had actually wanted help. Um,
So let's
and
back up just a little bit.
yeah,
Where was that moment when you realized that you had a problem?
um, there was quite a few moments, honestly. I would say the much bigger ones though was when I had my daughter. Because obviously, I mean, that's a whole nother story, and maybe another time we'll talk about that. But you know, she was born addicted, and 18 days she stayed in there, and we were going to give her up, you know. So I didn't even look at her when she was first born, and honestly, I went into labor in a crack house. Um, and she stayed in the hospital for 18 days. And the only reason I think she went home with us is because of Alan. Um, and because I accepted help, because I knew um, at that point that, and I knew at that point, but at the point, I don't think I was still ready on my own terms, if that makes sense. Because 6 months later, I did the whole program, I did everything I needed to do to keep my daughter, and to drug court and everything else, and peeing in a cup every day. But and I did that for 6 months. But after that 6 months, I went, straight back out. And then, of course, that's when, I went missing for that long period of time. The ultimate time, what led me to where I am now is the night before next day that I went home. Um, I went and got a bag of fentanyl with one of the other hookers, and we went back to what they call Tent City in my town, and that's where all the homeless live. So, mind you, I had a place to go and run to, but I chose to be there because of the drugs. Um, I only snorted it. The girl I was with, she injected it. And, obviously nodding out, we both fall asleep. And the next morning, I wake up and I look over and she's staring straight at me, and I'm like, hey, and there's no response. And she had OD'd through the night. And it was the same bag, the same stuff. The only thing that saved me was the way I did it. But looking into her eyes, and just knowing that that could have been me was a big eye opener and super scary. The bad thing is I never told anybody. I never informed anybody. I just packed my shit and I went home. And that's when I told Alan, I said, I need serious help. And from there, I went through, a really great program that's here locally, um, that took me in the hospital and took me on Suboxone and then weaned me down for 4 days and then sent me to our local rehab. And from there, I opted. I didn't want to be on the Suboxone anymore because I was on that originally with the 6 months, which for me was only a Band-Aid. Because when I didn't have it, I went right back to my DOC. I am one of those ones that cannot do maintenance drugs. So I opted and I begged them to give me the Vivitrol shot instead. And I can tell you that it was a godsend. It was the best thing I could have ever done, even though I only did it for 3 months because God decided, and I feel this with my heart, that I was no longer, I needed it. So he lapsed my insurance, so I couldn't get it. And and then I just did the work. I did the work, and here I am now. And there's a lot of things I've done. Um, you know, a lot of regrets and stuff, but I can't keep going back on that. I just have to move forward. And telling you guys some of the things, is one of those things. I didn't want to. Of course, everybody's pressing me, you and Alan and all, and I was like, you know what? Maybe it is time.
Well,
Um,
you
so
mentioned that you mentioned God lapsing your insurance. Were there other moments where there was definitely a God presence that saved you and prevented other,
yeah,
adversity?
a couple things that come to mind is and I know this is probably going to sound crazy, but um like I said, I was a snorter or a tutor, whatever you want to call it. But there was times I was so sick, and the only thing that was anywhere around was already in a wash in a needle. Not my needle, obviously it was one of the other girls that I ran with. It was one of hers, and I had a tourniquet around my arm. Um, I, my vein was popped out, and it was about to go in, and right at that moment, and I fully believe that God sent this drug dealer through the door with some powder, and I was able to take that tourniquet off, and I was able to snort my DOC and feel better at that point. And a couple months later, I found out that this girl had AIDS. So I truly believe that God had sent drugs, um, in a different way to save me from something much worse, later down the line. I know,
Ooh,
crazy, right? But
yeah, that's a definite moment.
um,
That is definitely a moment. Uh,
there's other times I'm sure, but that's the most prominent in my mind right now.
so I'm about to sneeze. It's working on it. It's thinking about it. I can feel it. Okay, it's passed. Um, so woke up next to the woman you were doing drugs with to discover her dead. Went home and asked Alan for help. Vivitrol shot for 3 months after going through detox. Like what followed that? Like, because now, like, you don't have the Vivitrol shot, so now, like, there's still fentanyl out there. There's still heroin out there. Like, how did you maintain?
Um, by having the best support group a girl could ever ask for. Um, and being open and honest about everything. I've I've thought about it. I've thought, wow, this real life stuff really sucks, Um, it's hard to handle. Like it'd be great, I'd be able to just just be so comfortable in my own skin if I, had some fentanyl. You know, um, this would be easier to deal with, I just so many things. Um, and then dreams, like the crazy dreams, and then waking up and thinking it's real and actually like crying, being open and honest about as soon as something or a thought like that, comes in, is to talk to whomever really is nearest me, which is most usually Alan. Um, you know, for a long time before I discovered this group, I just went Sundays to my local, um, meditation, like NA based group. It used to be called Refuge Recovery, but something happened, so we couldn't call it that anymore. But we continued. There's only three of us, but we still continued, and now here we are. Well, 2 years later, with me, and we're still going strong. Although we did lapse during COVID for a few months, and and I think
It
that's when I discovered this. Honestly,
lapses in the group. Like,
we
the
like
group just
took a
sort of
break.
disbanded. Okay.
No, we just couldn't meet in person because of COVID. Um, so, and that's when I think I came across this girl. I don't even know how it just ended up on my feed, and I started watching it, and it's funny because I was just thinking about it today, like thinking about what am I gonna say, what am I gonna talk about, and and I thought that it was like one of those things that I'd probably never see on my feed again or whatever. So I'm getting on here, and I was asking all kinds of crazy questions, like embarrassing questions, to be honest, because I never thought that I'd see these, or hear from these people again, And but LT and police took it like a champ, and answered my questions, and and then I hit like the like button or something, and then it just started streaming like all the time. And then, here we are now, a part of the Discord and Facebook and YouTube, and I try not to miss like any of the lives. And for a long time, before I started back to work, I was hitting every Zoom meeting that we had. Um, so, this is a big part of my recovery too, for the last, well, we'll say, 9, 10 months or so. Um, and I'm so grateful for it. But I would say what's really kept me is just strong support system. You know, my partner, even my kids, um, so many people in my small town that know us, um, church, and family, and you guys. That's really what's kept me going, even when I didn't want to go.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So that's awesome. So what comes next for Jeanette? Like, what are some of your goals? Like,
well, currently, we hit one of our goals, which was a great success. You know, for so many years we didn't have a vehicle because one, we couldn't afford it. um, and the last vehicle we had, of course, um, got repoed because, instead of paying the bill like I was supposed to, and he thought I was doing, I wasn't. I was using it for drugs. Um, Although there was something else with like the dealership or something that was going on there too, but ultimately it was me. So for 3 years we were carless. I mean, we figured it out, we figured a way, but you know uh we finally got a vehicle, you know um working on paying off my fines that I probably should have done like 2 years ago. um but all in due time. So I'm working on that. I want to get my license back, um feel like an actual adult again, working on my credit, which I never thought I'd say. Like I never thought credit was so important until, I ruined all of it. But so, those are like big things. And then right now with going back to work, I'm um trying to establish a routine, a new routine, because it's really hard with the way things are right now in the world and not having enough people working places and stuff. It's difficult. So that's something that, I hope soon I can really pin something down to where I don't feel like my family's getting neglected, and still being able to maintain work. Ultimately, getting a house, our own home, that's a future goal, and just to stay clean every day by day.
And what about career ambitions? What about educational ambitions? Do you have any of those?
Well, I have a GI Bill that I have not used. And, I got this computer because I wanted to go back to school and do some online schooling. But I think God had some different plans for me at the moment, because, I got called back to a job that I didn't even want to begin with, for a second time. And they asked me to please come back. And then, after 7 days, they were like, "Hey, we want you to be manager." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." So I'm like, "God, is this your plan?" And I'm still trying to figure it out, what he really, like, what the ultimate uh goal for me is there. But yeah, I'm just kind of winging it right now.
Hmm.
Um, I'm just going wherever God leads me, wherever he takes me.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Hope
I had a thought. I can't remember. I lost it. It's gone. I did almost put Brad in timeout for naming you to the new Savage, like trying to take that from me.
Well, see, I haven't been able to read. Like, it's really weird being on the other side. Like, really weird. I'm Nibby. What did he say about me?
He said that you're the new Savage. I almost put him in timeout for it.
Oh,
And you
he
did
can
not
he can
call.
curse.
Yeah, I had no missed calls, Brad. Pictures or it didn't happen. But so I like, if you were to use the GI Bill, what would you like go for?
Oh God. So I think I went through quite a few things. Growing up, I always wanted to be a forensic scientist, or a coroner. Um, that's kind of a lot anymore. I don't think I want to do that much schooling this late in life, because then
Yeah.
by the time I'm there, you know, I'll have to use a cane everywhere I go. I don't know, but and then my mom had a good thought. She's like, "Well, what about, mortuary? What about making people's last, hoorah look great?" And I'm like, "Well, maybe." Um, but I don't think that's really my thing either. Um, Ultimately, I do talk to a therapist, and she's been pretty enthralled with me and how I deal with things. And she did once say that she had talked to a professor about, like, I can't remember exactly what it was, but like drug therapy, drug
An
counselor,
addiction counselor,
an addiction counselor, yeah. Um,
like a peer support.
right. So I had thought and rolled that around in my head, and honestly, that's what kind of drove me to buy this computer that I have no idea about. Because just the other day I couldn't get on because there was too many updates, and I
Hmm.
was told that I need to get on it more than like 2 times a month. So um but that's what drove me to get this before I got called back to this job. And I was really considering about looking into that. So I mean, that's something that's kind of there too. I think that I could. eventually, try to strive for.
And is there anything that, like, any any message that you would like to share to, women who may be going through similar experiences, or resorting to certain patterns of drug behavior or drug seeking behaviors?
Well, like I said before, patience is a big thing that obviously we always tell newcomers, and all of us as newcomers are like, that's bull crap, I want it now. Um, Patience is a virtue. That's a big thing. To women that's kind of been through exactly what I've been through, or some of the things, um, I really, I think a lot of women that's been through that don't feel like they deserve love, or that they've done such horrible things that they don't deserve to be sober, or to have support. And I would like to tell them that, you know, we do deserve it. There's a whole different life after that. And a beautiful one at that. So never be scared to change, or about the change, or to reach out, or to ask help from someone that might have similar situations, that's you know got some time under their belt or something. You know you deserve everything and more. Just because we've done horrible things, that wasn't us, that was a whole other person. And really, that was just the drugs doing all of that. The drugs are the devil, man. Like, you know um so many things, none of most of us would never do if it wasn't for being under the influence.
Hmm.
And so you're not that person anymore. And just keep going, keep continuing, and seek help, and
So,
seek that support.
do you feel today? Do you feel that you are deserving of love?
Absolutely.
And where was that moment when you realized you had that evolution of mind and made that decision that you are deserving of love? Like, what?
um Honestly, when I told Alan that I really needed help, and he was like, okay. And when he still came to visit me on the visitation times when I was in rehab, and and brought my daughter, um that right there was a big eye opener, that I deserve, well, maybe not. I didn't so much. I felt the love there. I was still in a place where I felt like I had done such wrong, especially to him, that I didn't deserve his kindness, his support. Um, I kind of just forced myself to accept it. Um, but I would say, honestly, maybe 6 months ago, fully, when I finally came completely clean about some things that I was withholding from him, because I was so guilty about it, and I knew it would hurt him a lot. But being with him, it's something that keeping it hidden or lying about it was worse than just telling him. And after I had came clean about that to him, and we sat down and talked to it, he was very distraught, but he, with tears in his eyes, was like, I still love you, and I'm still here for you. That's not you anymore. So knowing that he knew and been through this journey with me, that I'm, you know, not that person anymore, is what really opened my eyes, that, you know, I am deserving of this, that, and that's coming from the people that love me and support me. That's kind of drilled it into my head that I deserve it, that I'm, not that person, and that person's gone.
Did you have to go through a period of mourning for your previous self?
You mean like letting that person go?
Yeah.
Um, no, no, I don't think so. Um, that person was awful and toxic and hurt a lot of people. So in letting her go, um, I was cool with it. Like, um, I just no, she's gone. I booted her out. No mourning, you know. She overstayed her welcome, and I'm cool with not seeing her again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I asked because I did go through a mourning period. That's the only reason I asked. And so what is? I'm not sure if I asked this already, but what is your life look like today? How does and then really more? No, that's not the question I want to ask. So how do you feel today? Like, how is your relationship with your daughter, with Alan, with your higher power, with your family?
Um, Obviously it's so much better. I mean, you have your certain times, like we all get frustrated or angry, and then we have a 2-year old and she's crazy, so like that's a lot of like um exertion and running and tired, and and she's a lot, like because of her being born addicted. I've tried to put her in everything I possibly can to make sure that we can combat any problems, psychological, speech, um
Hmm.
and you know um physical even.
Thank you,
So
Marilyn.
you know um so I think that she may have some like hyperactivity or something. Maybe it's not even because of that, but um she's a lot, so we're all worn out, and every once in a while we kind of get snippy with each other. But honestly, my family and everybody is just so understanding, and we've all learned to kind of take a step back and breathe for a minute, especially if we get so angry that we're just like, um ready to say something that we don't want to regret later or something.
Hmm.
So I mean, that's been something that we've learned. um Walking away sometimes is the best medicine for that. And you know I would say great. I mean, because I haven't I haven't done anything with my family, like road trips or, going on vacation or anything, more than I have this past 2 years. You know, asked me 3 years ago if I was going to go to, Ocean City, um, with my family, or, to Amish country, or just yesterday we went to, just in Ohio, about half an hour away, just to get ice cream. You know, too many times before I would have been too scared to leave my area of comfort because there wasn't drugs where I was going. What if something happened? The car was to break down and then I'd be without, and then sick. Um, and I don't have to worry about that anymore, you
Oh
know.
yeah.
Um, my higher power, I have many, God obviously is the big one. And you know, I haven't been to church in a while because of COVID and stuff, and then Harley being, because they don't have a daycare or a Sunday school, so she's kind of a lot and loud and wants to run. So I haven't gone in person, but I watch it every Sunday online, which is really great. This futuristic stuff is just awesome. So I tried to get the word, and then every Sunday I do meditation. So meditation is taught me a lot about grounding and keeping myself calm, and then and just knowing that ultimately there's a bigger picture for me, and God has a plan, and just believing that, and knowing that, yes, I I, I don't know. It's I didn't believe there was a God for a long time when I was running. Um, didn't have any relationship or conversations with him. Um, and now I just I just see everything. I see all the beauty. I don't know. It's weird. I don't know how to really answer that correctly. I'm running all around it. All I can say is that I have a great relationship with everybody I need to have a great relationship with.
And so, we were speaking of family. How is your family's transition from your addiction into your sobriety, into your recovery?
As in,
As in, you had these set patterns of behavior, these things that
mhm.
you would do in addiction, and then, how did Alan transition to, you were staying clean, you were committed, you were, doing everything you needed to do to stay sober. Like, what did the family, like in the big book, talking about the family afterwards,
Mhm.
sitting down and having that conversation with the family and all of that, like, and their process of healing and their process of letting go of resentments and, like, what did their transition look like?
Well, um, Alan, for a while, and I didn't really recognize it until, you know, we watched an episode on here and then really realized, oh shoot, like he has some of those same things with the co-addiction or the co I guess addiction, being the person on the other side. Um, I would go to the bathroom and lock the door, obviously, because I didn't want littles to come in on me. But he wouldn't want to ask a question and come into the bathroom, and then the door's locked. And that was a trigger for him because I would disappear to the bathroom a lot and then be in there for hours, mainly because I was nodding off or, whatever. But and he recognized those things even though he didn't know this was going on at the time. um or I think he didn't want to believe it, honestly. um but once he knew that, and then he saw all these signs and realized that's what that was, he, I think, had some PTSD from it. And so I now no longer lock the door because, you know, for one, he's my partner. He can come in, you know what I mean? And instead, we put a child safety, like, or, one of those little knobby things where she can't, it keeps spinning. so,
Mhm.
so that way he can get in and feel comfortable, which he's done, a few times. And quite often, almost daily, honestly, he asks me if I'm okay. Um, Are you okay? Is everything all right? Like, and especially if I tell him a story of something like, or I went past a place where I used to use, he's real quick to ask me if I'm okay. Do I need to talk? And if I do, I talk to him. My son, which, for a long time, I was there, but I wasn't actually there. I wasn't present. And then, when it got really bad, I kind of just disappeared from his life for like 2 years almost. And, because in my mind, I felt he was safer, you know, with his grandmother where he was staying most of the time than he was with me. And things happened, progressed to where it was eventually I had no contact with him. He now lives with me full time and he'd rather be with me. Um, so there's that, and he knows that I'm clean. He even actually has started going to my meditations meetings with me. Um, and he's super proud of me. And I know that's so weird coming from your own children, but it means a lot because, you know, I wasn't there for him. And, with him as well, I think I've given him abandonment issues and other things. So one of my first things when we started reconnecting and he started coming, every couple days to stay with me, I got him right into a therapist because I felt it was important that he talk to somebody. Because even though at the time he had told me that he didn't have any problems, I really wanted him to be able to open up in case there were. So, and then my mother, it took her quite a long time um, to kind of, I think, realize that I was in a good place. I think she was in a way the one more skeptical of my sobriety. And I think it took her a long time until so long that she finally had realized that, okay, well, this is for real. And so now, we talk. Well, it was almost daily for a while. And then, of course, life happens, whatnot. But we talk almost, once a week at least on, FaceTime. And we never really had a close relationship, but I think we have a closer relationship now than we have pretty much ever had. So,
Oh yeah. So
yeah.
we have a comment from the chat. Rachel asks, "How do you deal with if you feel guilty? How do you deal with feeling guilty?" And it's something she's going through at the moment. And this was she commented up here a little bit when you were talking about the bathroom. She said that yes, that was me, always in the bathroom. My kids knew, breaks my heart because while I walked past, go in and cry as I used because I hated myself for it.
Yeah. Um, I'm reading, but
Oh, sorry.
no, it's okay.
So here's a follow up.
Feeling guilty.
Her follow up was, "My children are the ones I wish I would have never put them through any of this because at the end of the day, they loved me and never pushed me away, regardless of what I was doing."
Yeah.
Sorry.
And there's no one better than mama, you know what I mean? So if anything, my kids have pushed me to want to stay clean because I want to be the best mother I can to them because for so long, and just like you, Rachel, um, I may have been there physically, but I wasn't there emotionally or, you know, mentally. So, I wasn't really present. And that can do some damage, to your children. And that's why now, trying to do the best you can, and to gain somewhat that time back. But as for the feeling guilty part, I think for me it was going to meetings. It was talking to people, on the Zooms here, about how I was feeling about something, or even, you know, multiple times, Cherie is a good person, if it's late at night or whatever, that you can talk to, kind of get things off your chest. I know Alicia does that for a lot of people. Um, Brittany even, could be a good support. I think a lot of people that are just willing to listen to you, sometimes just get that off your chest, helps you feel, a lot better. And sometimes talking, just you talking yourself, you figure things out as you're speaking. And, just hearing it out loud helps you to realize, well, shoot, I never thought about this, but this is what I need to do. Or someone else might have a really great idea of how to deal with that. So just
Oh,
talking, opening up.
oh yeah. Yeah. Forgiving yourself.
Yes. And
Like
that's a
I
hard
had to, it, I agree. Like I had to forgive myself as well. And it took a long time.
And I
Took a
still
long
think that there's a lot of our addiction, there's little multiple stories of different things that happened at different times, um, that you might come across later on that you haven't thought about in a long time, and then you feel guilty about that. But at the same time, as soon as you think, you have to remember that that was that person, that is not that person anymore, so you just need to let it go.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Forgive yourself. The ninth step promises, they're very, very real. You know, like, have you had those experiences? Have you been amazed before you were halfway through?
Say that again. I'm sorry. The ninth step promises, because
Yeah.
I started doing my steps, and I did the like, drive by with LT. But I stopped on step 4 because, with this job and all. So I haven't gotten that far. So you just saying it, I'm kind of like, what? Like, you kind of explain it a little bit more to me.
Well, and the ninth step promises, if we are painstaking about this phase of our development, we will be amazed before we are halfway through. We will know a new peace and a new happiness. And I guess I'm going to read the rest of them now. Like that's we will not regret the past nor wish to shut the door on it. We will comprehend the word serenity and we will know peace. No matter how far down the scale we have gone, we will see how our experience can benefit others. That feeling of uselessness and self-pity will disappear. We will lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in our fellows. Self-seeking will slip away. Our whole attitude and outlook upon life will change. Fear of people and of economic insecurity will leave us. We will intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle us. We will suddenly realize that God is doing for us what we could not do for ourselves. Are these extravagant promises? We think not. They are being fulfilled among us, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. They will always materialize if we work for them.
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, now that you read them, um, all of it, you know, um, and a lot of the steps too, when I started doing them, I realized that I have already done a lot of them on my own. And I think that's when you know that you're really done, is when you start realizing that you have already took steps that you didn't even realize were a step, like going and apologizing to someone, for a certain, thing you did, and not even knowing what the steps are, or just starting out and being like reading it and being like, oh, well, crap, I already did that. I can mark that off of my list of things to do, you know? Um, so yeah, I mean, yeah, we can't We can't keep blaming ourselves, because then we'll never get past it and we'll never move forward. Yes.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So my answer is yes to that.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, we're an hour and 5 minutes. Do you have anything else that you'd like to get out there? Are there any questions that to addressing the people in the chat? Are there any other questions that you may like to ask Jeanette before we close? And also, be sure to like, subscribe, and share if you haven't done so already, and hit that little notification bell so that you know when we are going live. Like, we've got a lot of really positive feedback from the chat during the conversation, and so like you might want to catch your own replay just to get that, to feel that love. Like, Petey, you're awesome, Jeanette, and keep on keeping on, because we recover better together, sweetie. Love you always and forever.
Aww.
Any burning desires, from Jester.
Just to stroke Jake's beard.
It's a good beard.
No, to use, absolutely not anymore.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So the show's not over till we say the Serenity Prayer. Great. Okay. Get up here. So with that, who are we not? God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen.
Amen.
Yes, thank you all for watching. And with that, don't put yourself in high-risk situations. Stay strong, work your program, and remember, we recover better together. And there we go.